Now, I love having basil all year round, and it's entirely possible to grow basil all year round, even though you kind of think of it as a summer crop. As you know, if you keep these supermarket pots just like this, unless you use them up quite quickly, what tends to happen is they wither and don't look very good and aren't really that long-lived. And that's because they've got so many plants in one tiny pot, and so there's an awful lot of root competition. In fact, you can see the roots are coming out right now, and so it's really cramped in here. I'll gently take this off. You can see how many roots there are because it's just a real forest, which means it's fine for one cut, but it's not going to last very long. So if you want to make these pots last a lot longer, what you have to do is gently tear apart so that you have, I'll use that bit there. In fact, I'll use that one altogether. Now, you will lose some of them in this because they will break and whatnot, but that's really fine because what you want to do is give each one a bit more space. So that will become supper tonight. And then what I'm going to do, you might end up making a bit of a mess, but it's fine, is replant these in some more compost where they have a little bit more space. So I'm really trying to separate them, and they will quickly re-establish themselves in these pots and then live a lot longer than if you left them all cramped together in a pot. Essentially, the more compact the roots and the more congested, the shorter the life of the plant. Now, you can also sow your own basil seeds, and you can do this any time of year. As long as the kitchen is nice and warm, they germinate at around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius, which most people's kitchens kind of roughly around that. And the good thing about sowing them from seed is it's incredibly cheap. You're going to spend somewhere from 99p to £2.50 for a packet of seed, and that will give you so many basil plants because there'll be at least 100 seeds in there. So I've just got some nice Italian basil here, and you can see there's just tons and tons of seed in there. So as long as you store your seeds somewhere in an airtight container, you'll be growing basil for years to come. And all I'm going to do is take a pinch of seed and just scatter it across the top of the compost. And then you have to give the seed a really good water in. Now, what's really important is that you don't bury the seed. What you'll find is with basil seed that once it's wet, it swells up really considerably and gets this kind of extraordinary sort of layer of gel around it. And at this point, it needs light to germinate. So if you cover the seed up with too much compost, you can really slow germination down. So just leave the seed on the surface of the compost, give it a really good water in, and then cover it with a clear plastic bag, a freezer bag or something like that, because what you really need for good basil germination is for high humidity and moisture and warmth. And then when you see the seeds start to germinate, that's when you can take the polythene bag off. And at that point, you can either harvest the basil as sort of microgreens. So if you've sown it really thick, you can use them as tiny, tiny little greens if you really want a punch of flavour. Or you can thin them out so that you have more space and allow them to grow into really big basil plants.